Today, the Cozy Mystery Quartet is talking about a crazy little thing called love and how it fits in a cozy little mystery book. I'm Wendy Kendall, and I'm joined by Susan McCormick, Michael Erdahl, and Linda Hope Lee. We all love a good mystery, and all our mysteries include an element of love. Life is interesting because it's multidimensional. The same is true of fiction. Our characters focus on their mystery, but they also have jobs, responsibilities, hobbies, interests. They have relationships with family, friends, and love interests, just like us in real life. That's part of the reader appeal for cozy mysteries. The amateur sleuth could be me. A relationship can reveal a lot about a character, how caring they are about other people, or if they have something to learn about that. Also, what they reveal to someone who's close to them that they wouldn't reveal to anyone else. And the type of person that they would want to be in a relationship with. Romance in a mystery raises the stakes in the story's conflict. The life of the loved one may be in grave danger. There may be threats to the loved one's family, or their family member may be a suspect. The loved one's livelihood could be at great risk. The couple may have strong disagreements about the investigation, or the sleuth may be torn between their feelings and the realization their love interest is a suspect. Conflict drives a story plot. Besides the peril of a mystery to solve, a love interest provides a relationship's ups and downs for added momentum. In Cat Out of the Bag, Catherine Watson is divorced. She's unexpectedly attracted to the cop, Jason Holmes. At the murder scene, Catherine has fallen in the rain and is sitting on the street curb, reeling from the shock of the scene. Bright, flashing lights on top of yet another police car broke through. This car was speeding right toward Catherine on the curb. She barely had time to roll out of the way. After a stunned self-affirmation she was still alive, her head hung heavy as she moved to a sitting position again. The siren stopped as a loud, vicious barking from inside the car started. Catherine stared at a huge German shepherd jumping against the car's back window. A car door slammed. A man kneeled next to her in the mud, leaning close. "Are you all right, miss? Are you okay? Do you think you can move?" Catherine's first thought was, "That's a big gun," as she stared ahead at the sidearm in the holster hanging from his belt. Catherine nodded at bright blue eyes that reflected the pulsing light from the police car. Grief, shock, and confusion yielded to the strong enchantment that hit deep within her scarred heart. The feeling left her speechless. That's their first meeting, Jason Holmes and Catherine Watson. Working to solve the murder, Catherine matches wits with Jason. They disagree often, but they discover an undeniable attraction. When Jason asks Catherine out for their first date, wow, what he has planned is a big surprise. From the moment he picks her up to the very dramatic end to the evening, Catherine is alternately amused, intrigued, romanced, challenged, outraged, and shocked. During the course of her investigation, Catherine meets Anthony Marconi. He's quite charming and attempts to sweep her off her feet. She's very much enamored with this man. That's more conflict for Catherine since he's on her suspect list. He could be the killer. As William Shakespeare wrote, the course of true love never did run smooth. Susan, what's your interest in love with your Fog Ladies series?
Thank you, Wendy. Gentle romance is often part of a cozy. And though most characters in my Fog Ladies series are in their 70s or 80s, romance is at play here too, on many levels. As is often the case in a cozy, the tired young Dr. Sarah has a romantic interest who can help the amateur sleuths in their investigation, namely a newspaper photographer. Sarah and Andy have an easy, fun relationship. Sarah leaned down and kissed him. You're amazing. Too bad you don't have the blueberry preserves for those scones. Mrs. Noonan made them herself. They're pretty good just like this. That woman sure can cook. For two kitchen doofuses like us, we're lucky to have her, Sarah said. Speak for yourself. Are you calling me a doofus? Andy pulled her down until she lost her balance and landed laughing in his lap on top of the scones. He drew her in for a quick kiss. You taste even better than the scones, he said. That's because you don't have the jam. There's also a lovely romance between Alma Gordon and Mr. Glenn, both 75. In Book 1, Mr. Glenn is a sad, wallowing widower, still mourning his wife's untimely death. Then he notices Alma Gordon. Here's a scene from her perspective. The elevator door opened and Mr. Glenn stepped out. He halted and looked at her standing there with the baby. He always seemed so sad, but right now he actually did not. He looked at peace. What a beautiful baby, he said. Thank you. She immediately felt silly, as if she were responsible for the baby's good looks. Mr. Glenn was in her way. The elevator door closed. They stood there, but it didn't seem awkward, just leisurely. I came to see if Mrs. Barker wants my rug. Spring clean, start afresh. Mr. Glenn was speaking, but he wasn't looking at her. His eyes were locked on baby Owen's sleeping face. Mrs. Gordon looked down, too. Owen's little mouth was open, and his long eyelashes flickered now and then. What a cutie he was. Mr. Glenn still stood there, but now he turned toward her. She'd never looked into his eyes, hidden as they were behind those large glasses. But they were quite nice, a watery blue color. On impulse, she said, Would you like to come to dinner? He looked shocked. She was sorry she'd asked. She hit the elevator button again, embarrassed. The baby stirred in her arms and she shushed him gently. The elevator door opened immediately. It had never left. She moved around Mr. Glenn and stepped on. Before the door closed, though, he answered, Yes. Yes, I would. In addition to regular romance, I have Mrs. Noonan, who lost her husband after 40 years of marriage. Her reminiscences provide a peek into their love. Here's a scene from the end of the book. Mrs. Honeycutt set a small blue tin on the table and opened it. At first, Frances Noonan could not place the smell. Then she inhaled sharply, engulfed in memories. The scent of her husband wafted out of the tin. Maybe you will like these, Olivia Honeycutt said to the group. Too strong for me. When did mints stop coming in rolls? Mrs. Noonan sat paralyzed. She smelled Bill and his wintergreen breath as he leaned over to kiss her cheek. She smelled Bill sitting next to her, reading on the couch, his feet touching hers. She smelled Bill at the kitchen table, working on the crossword. A cream puff was halfway to Ena Carmichael's mouth, but she dropped her hand and grabbed at the tin, knocking a few mints out onto the table. I'll try one, she said. Alma, Harriet? Someone's breath was mighty fragrant in the car. Who had onions for lunch? Frances, I think it was you. Here. The mint was tiny in Edith's oversized hand. Tiny, but packed with reminiscences. Frances inhaled again. The wintergreen was overpowering. She breathed it in, and her uncertainty and panic fell away, leaving her happier and happier. She reached out her hand, seized the mint, and popped it into her mouth. She sucked in, savoring the intensity of the wintergreen flavor. Bill was with her and always would be. Every memory was a blessing, to hold and to cherish. Maybe take two, Ena Carmichael said, shoving the whole tin closer. It's definitely your breath. Oh dear, Alma Gordon said. But Mrs. Noonan took a second mint, feeling lighter than she had in months. Michael, tell us about romance in your Seattle wilderness mysteries.
Thank you, Susan. Cozy mystery and romance readers both expect a happily ever after ending, so it's no surprise that a love story can work seamlessly within a cozy. However, the advantage that cozy mystery writers have over romance authors is that the love story subplot doesn't need to be tied up in a tidy bundle at the end of each book, but can be stretched over the entire series. Ups and downs in your characters' love lives can add stress, and as your readers become more invested in both the series and the relationships, you can tap into that pressure point to keep your reader turning pages long after their bedtime. It's an expert technique to add another layer of tension to the mystery main plot. However, don't believe anyone who expresses that romance is an easy genre to write. Every reader's experience with love is different, and attempting to have them connect with the love interest in your book can be challenging. For some readers, the relationship moves too slow, but for others, it can seem as if they are speeding through the dating day stages. The viewpoint is relative to their own experiences, so you are attempting to hit a moving target. I start the relationship between my main character Crystal and her co-worker Connor in my first book, Winter Takes All. Crystal bluffs her way into a wilderness guide position she is woefully unprepared for, and rather than call her out on her inexperience, Connor helps bring her skills up to speed. This scenario sets up a perfect situation for them to get to know each other and have a first date. Since the entire story happens over the course of a week, a date and a first kiss were a perfect start. But what about the tension? Well, when Crystal's job is suspended until the resolution of the murder, she realizes she might have to return to her loathed corporate job and worries that Connor will lose interest in the lackluster and miserable person she'd previously been. This further motivates her to investigate the murder. In my second book, Spring Upon a Crime, a cryptic text message and misleading Facebook photo lead Crystal to believe that Connor is preparing to break up with her, which heaps even more stress on my overwrought main character. She attempts to set aside her fears to focus on the murder case, but whenever she has a moment to breathe, she can't help but dwell on her relationship troubles. I reveal the misunderstanding later, which takes the reader on the roller coaster ride they want when reading any book. There are other cozy mystery tropes authors employ when it comes to the romantic interest. Janet Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum series utilizes a triangle, with the main character pulled in two directions by different love interests, and forces the reader to contemplate which team they are on. Some main characters are married, such as in Mary Daheim's Alpine series, where the spouse can both be a source of relief and stress, sometimes simultaneously. Other writers, such as Lisa Budowitz in her Spy Shop series, brings exes back into the picture to tempt the main character with familiarity, but also saddle them with emotional baggage. All of these various situations can be and should be interwoven with the main mystery plot to heighten tension while also leading the reader to the happily ever after they crave, even if it is temporary. Linda, can you tell me about the love interest in your Nina Foster series?
Thank you, Michael. Although the main focus of a cozy is, of course, the amateur sleuth solving the mystery, the sleuth would be a one-dimensional character without introducing other aspects of her life, including the friends and relatives who populate her world. If appropriate, these other characters may include a love interest. In my Nina Foster mystery series, Stephen Kraslow stepped into this role in the first chapter of Book 1, Murder Between the Pages. The story opens with Nina attending a friend's book launch party where a colleague introduces her to Stephen. He's new in town, having recently acquired the town newspaper, the Richmond Review. Although he's obviously interested in her, she's cool toward him, telling herself she doesn't like him because he's an outsider from back east rather than one of their tight-knit community. As the story progresses, we learn her reluctance stems not only from the recent failure of a relationship, but also from the fact that her father abandoned her and her mother when Nina was 5 years old. In her world, relationships just don't work. Stephen pursues her, though, and on another occasion gains her attention by asking her to write a book review column for the newspaper. He is also interested in the murder mystery, and as a former investigative reporter, he has skills that aid Nina's investigation. The relationship does not remain static. In each book, something occurs to pull them apart, while at the same time, something else brings them closer together. For example, in Book 3, Deadly Reunion, being welcomed by Stephen's sister's close-knit family makes Nina think that perhaps she could be part of a family after all. Then something occurs in Stephen's life that threatens to pull them apart. Here are some points to keep in mind when including a love interest in your cozy. Number 1, give the person skills or knowledge that allow him to contribute to solving the mystery, but do not allow him to overshadow the sleuth. Number 2, give the person a life of his own or he will appear one-dimensional. Number 3, include the ups and downs of the relationship. Number 4, be careful not to let the love relationship overshadow the mystery. It is, after all, a subplot. So, Including a love interest in your cozy will help to round out the sleuth's character as well as add interest to the story. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe and join us for our next episode.